Happy Tuesday, Hawkeye fans. Welcome into a post Kids Day edition of Hawk Central, quote unquote radio. This is Chad Leistico of the Des Moines Register, Tyler Tashman of the Des Moines Register, the dynamic duo as always. We did our post game Kids Day pod. I got to get to my 3-word headlines here. You can't let me forget that. I forgot the other day, Tyler. Sorry about that, everyone. But we'll get to those. We wanted to do kind of a review of our review, just to kind of go through the film, see what we missed, kind of reevaluate the quarterbacks one more time. And then we got a fun second part of the show here talking about fall camp depth chart risers. It doesn't roll off the tongue, I guess, but we're going to talk about some of the depth chart risers we've seen and learned about on Media Day, kind of what this roster might look like when we finally get a 2 deep here in the next couple weeks. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great. How about you?
That's it. Okay. What'd you notice when you re-looked at the film? We talked a lot about Hecklinski, Brown, obviously on Saturday, how Hecklinski, dominated the day. When you look back at it, anything else stand out?
I don't feel really as bad about the defense and in particular the defensive line. I think after going back and watching it, Jeremy Hecklinski was just getting the ball out really fast, and he was also getting the ball out on time. He was trusting the pocket. He was he wasn't bailing and before it seemed like he needed to. So I didn't think not I didn't think the defensive line looked great, but I think after watching it, I didn't feel as bad about the lack of pressure. And it was good to see from Jeremy Hecklinski's perspective of someone who isn't the tallest guy, but who was trusting the pocket and getting the ball out. And then Hank Brown was also flushed from the pocket multiple times. And it was kind of weird because Hank Brown had multiple passes batted, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's credit to the defensive line, but also given how tall Hank Brown is, that's a little surprising to see how many passes he was getting batted at the line. So I thought Jose Epinesa, after watching it, I thought he looked good. I thought Drew Campbell, another guy we might talk about more later, he was getting first team reps with Kenneth
Spoiler
with
alert.
yeah, with Kenneth Merriweather out. So,
Yeah.
and defensively again, some of the touchdowns, both of Evan James's touchdowns, one of Vanami's, they were pretty good coverage. Like it wasn't a couple, one of them Vanami beat Iowa's defense pretty bad. Another one, Vanderzee, was kind of a missed tackle that ended up getting in. But in some of these cases, I thought the coverage was pretty good. This was just, in my opinion, Jeremy Hecklinski having just a heck of a day where he was really putting the ball where he wanted. It was on time, short passes, getting the ball out quick. And also, there's an argument to be made like, well, he was just completing short passes in some of these cases. But yeah, yeah, but and a lot of times Iowa's quarterbacks haven't been able to make those throws, even the
Right.
simple ones. So it was a healthy mix of short passes and then also some more explosive plays. But I thought it was a tip of the cap to Hecklinski in the day that he had.
Yeah, let me start with the defense before we get into a little bit more on the quarterbacks. The one you were talking about with Vaname beating the coverage, it sounded like that was a safety error, so he kind of got behind Cam Buffington on that long one. That was ones versus ones, and so that Buffington wasn't supposed to be on him, is what I would understand. So looked like it was maybe Viti that got kind of sucked up, and then Vaname went over the top. Now, credit to Hecklinski for identifying those matchups. I think when there's defensive mistakes, a good quarterback seizes on those matchups. And so, you can excuse it away, say, oh, well, you can't give the offense too much credit. Well, you do have to give them credit for finding those mismatches and executing, an explosive play in that situation to your best player. Also, defensively, I think we should point out that Kenny Merriweather did not play. He is supposed to be their best pass rusher. I mean, at least the most experienced defensive end. So we saw Jose Epinesa and Drew Campbell start on the ends. Also out was obviously Tyler Brown. They are high on him at strong safety. We don't know when he will be back. Obviously, that's a concern. So he was out. Zach Lutmer did not play the full gamut of 11 on 11. He started out the day, came out after one of the punt returns, did not return. I think it's pretty minor, but he was not in there as much. That's a big deal if Zach Lutmer's not out there. And then Jalen Watson wasn't out there too much either. So you saw a lot of Rashad Godfrey at corner, Darian Jones at corner. Jacob Wallace was mostly in that cash spot. So he was out there. And Sean Lee, of course, was out there too. But, you're starting to get into, the ones had some twos in it. The twos had some threes in it. So you understand, the defense wasn't at full strength. I would say the offense, for the most part, was at full strength. I can't think of too many offensive players of note, if any, Tyler, that were out. Can you? I mean, I'm really can't even think of hardly any. Can you?
No,
No.
I
So the
felt like
offense
they were
was
pretty
full
much
strength.
fine, yeah.
So that's good. That's good for the offense. That's good news. I mean, that's all part of football is being available as well. So, just kind of some caveats where you put the offensive's performance in perspective. Also heard that the next practice that they had, the defense fared much better against the quarterbacks. So, we saw Hecklinski have a really, really good day. Probably his best day, probably Hank Brown's worst day, from what I was told. So, but you got to give Hecklinski a lot of credit for doing that on that day. I mean, that's what you want to see when the lights are on, to show up, to deliver, to execute, to look that sharp. All credit to him to me, just taking a commanding lead in this race for QB1.
And part of the equation there is the receivers too. They were making some tough contested catches, and so that was an encouraging sign from the standpoint of Iowa's receiving game, of the way that Evan James played, and it wasn't like Tony Diaz had this sensational day. So you're talking about potentially your number one receiver who or wide receiver who didn't have like, a best of the best day. That's a good sign for Iowa's receiving game. And so, you mentioned the Hank Brown's worst day, Hecklinski's best day. And for it to be Hecklinski's best day, that's not shocking to me, because I don't know how you could get much better than that. Like he had a really, really good day. But it is interesting to hear that that might have been Hank Brown's worst day, because I'm coming out of that wondering, like, has this been what they've seen from Hank Brown consistently, or was this, one of the lower end of his performance? So what do you think? Because again, it's kind of we're trying to obviously put this in a broader context and understand that, yes, this one day in front of fans was important, but also take into account that they're seeing much more of the picture than what we're seeing. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it was a case where, again, like, for whatever reason, Hank Brown was off. He It seemed like he was, and the film kind of shows this. Rewatching the film, both from behind the line of scrimmage and from where you captured the video, horizontal traditional TV view. He was just kind of like almost hopping when he threw sometimes, a little bit like a half step late here and there, not trusting himself or something. The one that was just so damning, and rewatching it's almost worse from the end zone view when he has Evan James clearly open on that post route, had the protection he needed, and just completely missed the throw. I mean, that's a ball you've got to hit. If you get that opportunity in a Big Ten game, you absolutely have to hit that throw. And so, just reviewing it on film, it was just a rough day for Hank. It wasn't the decision making was not bad. It was just the execution of those throws that was poor. There was one rep. A lot of people wondered, Tony Diaz didn't have much of a day. Well, there was one rep where he just put Darian Jones in a blender, got wide open over on the right sideline, and Hank Brown had him open, and he literally just threw the ball out of bounds where Diaz couldn't get it. And he was, I mean, he had just, that's one of those 15-yard outs that you've just got to hit. Those are easy throws. And he just plain missed a one-on-one where the DB basically got turned around and fell down. And that would have been, if Diaz makes that catch, it's like, oh, wow, Diaz had a pretty nice day. He ended up on my stats, 3 catches for 23 yards. So a little bit more tame day than maybe we would have expected for a 5-touchdown day for Hecklinski. But I guess, yeah, just reviewing the Brown stuff, it just was just a bad day of execution. You obviously, if they had seen that every day, you would say, well, this can't be much of a race. But that's why they talk about the 20 practices or whatever. But I just have to. I mean, it's just hard to imagine a world where Hecklinski is not the leader right now in the clubhouse, and he's just got to continue to take this momentum and run with it because really nothing to quibble with on Hecklinski's day at all.
Yeah. On as a basketball guy, I felt like he operated like a good point guard. He was getting the ball out to different guys. He was facilitating the offense. He was doing what a good point guard and leader of the offense should do. And how concerning is it with Hank Brown that when the lights do seem to be on, he's not performing well. And I mean, even if you go back to his time at Auburn, he played well against. He started 2 games at Auburn. One of them was against lower tier competition. He played really well. The other one was against an SEC opponent, and he threw 3 picks in the first half and got benched. I mean, it's almost becoming a little bit of a trend where in these bigger situations, and Kids Day isn't even that big of a situation, but it's one where, hey, there's a little bit more pressure on, there's fans there, you're competing for the starting quarterback job, and you're not performing at the level that you want to. So that, to me, it's becoming a little bit of, I don't know, a concerning trend, or it's getting close to that arena of where, when you really want someone to come through and perform well, they're not. And also, I would say Hank Brown's performance was more online of what we were used to seeing from Kids Day, where it's just
Right. Yeah.
clearly the timing isn't, the execution isn't there. It looks very choppy. That's what we've gotten used to. But then when you put that directly in contrast with what Jeremy Hecklinski did, it's just like a very jarring, discrepancy between the two.
Yeah, exactly. So they'll have their primary scrimmage, or not the closed scrimmage. It's usually on a Saturday night over at the practice field. Sometimes I've had it on a Friday night, I think, but it will be this weekend. So, if you're Tim Lester, Kirk Ferentz, everybody on that offensive staff, you look for confirmation in that scrimmage that Hecklinski is the guy. Now, it could be the case where, hey, what if Brown just completely outplays him? I'm going to guess, if I had to, that Hecklinski would be with the ones. Maybe Brown starts with the twos. Maybe he gets some confidence. I mean, that's how it worked the other day. Hecklinski started with the twos. Maybe he generated a little more confidence in that role and had a hot day. And Brown, missed some early stuff and just lacked that confidence. But all of that, like you said, it's concerning if you're in the hoping for Hank Brown camp, just wondering if he can deliver when the lights are on. Does he go into, from what we've seen from him, do we feel like, oh, he can go into Ann Arbor and go get Iowa a win? No, we don't. I don't think there's anybody that feels good about that. But with Hecklinski, you think, hey, he's got a chance. I mean, still don't know too much about him, but the guy's got a little something here, and I think that's what fans are going to gravitate to. Kind of like what could this guy be? I just want to see it play out. And from what we know about Hecklinski, no matter if he does get the start, let's say Tyler, I think folks should be and will be prepared for, hey, this is a guy that has been at times feast or famine. He is a risk taker. There's probably going to be some negatives. That there's going to be maybe some bad games that come with it. So it's not like he's going to throw for 5 touchdowns and no picks and no sacks every time out. But you just kind of want to see more, and that's what a good that's what you should want out of your competition. You just want to keep seeing more of this quarterback because you're intrigued.
The one play that after watching it, like, really stood out to me was the one he bobbled a snap, Jeremy Hecklinski, that is, and he collected it, and he had Kamari Brown and one other defender just basically right on top of him, and he didn't panic, he just threw the ball and ended up completing a short pass. It could have been a disastrous play if he wasn't able to corral the snap or get it off so quickly. That's what remember we saw at Kids Day last year. Mark Gronowski had trouble fielding snaps. Like that was an issue. It was like a weird thing. But that was a play where it's just like he had two guys in his face. Who,
Yeah.
you know, he was trying to corral the snap, and he just didn't look like he had any panic in him. Now the thing that just kind of came to my mind is we've been talking about this quarterback battle for for a while and stuff. Do you think it's good that there is at least publicly some separation? Because you were kind of in the camp, it seemed like, let's get this into game competition and see
Mhm.
who performs better. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that, I mean, so best case scenario, Hank Brown and Jeremy Hecklinski have great days at Kids
Right.
Day. They both are great. That's best case scenario. That didn't happen. But do you think it's a good thing that there was such a clear one and two coming out of Kids Day?
Well, that's a really good question because I feel like I could go both ways on that.
I feel like Kirk would say no, right?
Yeah.
Kirk probably wouldn't want that, like,
Right.
at least
Um,
publicly.
yeah. I go back to my podcast with Tim Lester, and he said, we would like to know. He would like to know as soon as possible. I mean, because that way you do, if you make a decision, you do get that guy all the one reps or most of the one reps, and you get him really ramped up for the season ahead. They're definitely not to that point yet. Maybe they're starting to get there in their minds. But I think, and let's transition this into the Jimmy Sullivan conversation now. What I think the performance the other day does is start putting some thoughts in the coach's mind of, okay, let's make sure we got the right number two quarterback if
Yeah.
Heklinski is our number one. Now, again, all the asterisks galore at all, going against the third and fourth defense, guys that really are just brand new. But man, Jimmy Sullivan did look really good, and that is consistent with what Lester told me in that podcast too. Is he's coming on, man. And I think I can't remember if I pointed this out in our pod or not, but uh, Sullivan's been here as long as Hank Brown. I
Yeah.
mean, literally, they both arrived at the Music City Bowl. Now Sullivan was, walking around, Nashville and still in high school at that point, whereas Hank Brown was, finishing up his second year of college. But they've been in the program, in the system, the same amount of time. It's just that Brown had the edge coming in because of that college experience and Auburn experience. But in terms of the Shanahan system, they've got the same amount of time. They really like his strong arm. You talked to Billy Vandenberg. I mean, he was 10 for 15, had three explosive plays in the pass game the other day, including two touchdown passes to Brody Schaefer and Isaiah Oliver. So a really, really impressive day from Jimmy Sullivan, regardless of who was on the field.
Yeah, the touchdown pass to Isaiah Oliver was just was a beauty, and we probably haven't talked about the day Jimmy Sullivan had enough, just because so much of the attention is on Hank Brown and Jeremy Hecklinski. But it goes back to at Big Ten Media Days, Kirk Ferentz was talking about the quarterback competition, and at least once he kind of threw Jimmy Sullivan into that mix of like, hey, we'll give let Jimmy have some reps as well. And I was kind of taken aback by that. Like, are you serious about letting him compete for the job? But I can see why now. I mean, he looked way more comfortable, confident. He made some really nice throws. And I think what the bigger picture takeaway from this is that you just like to see development within the room, because that's what I was lacked when they've had all this turnover in the room. You have these younger guys that just haven't panned out. Your James Rezar, your Marco Linez. When you even bring in Deacon Hill from the portal, there's just been such a lack of year to year improvement, because partially because Iowa just hasn't had guys stick around that long. But finally this offseason, they were able to retain guys. You bring back Hecklinski, Brown, Fitzgerald, and Sullivan. And now the encouraging thing, or thing that gives you a little bit of hope, is to see guys develop from year to year. So that to me was the exciting thing, is that to finally see the quarterback make strides from year to year, whereas there that just
Hmm.
hasn't been the case because Iowa hasn't been able to retain guys.
Yeah, it's a great point about the development, for sure. And you assembled those Jimmy Sullivan clips. That's when I got a better chance to review some. I missed some of them, kind of making my way down from the press box. So, yeah, appreciate that. Good job. Check out Tyler's videos at Hawk Central YouTube or hawkcentral.com. I think they're all up there. Let's before I forget, let's do a few three-word headlines, and then we'll get into our next phase of the show here, Tyler. Obviously, yeah, this wasn't a game that was televised, so a lot of the coverage was consumed, obviously, via our media feeds. And if you were in the stands, the few thousand people are in the stands. Now, Mitch Fick got it going. Our friend over at KGAN said, "Heck of a day, Jeremy." Was the first three-word headline submission of the day. Cody Hills, "Oh heck yeah," and then Dennis on Hawkeye Images. Jeremy spoke in a little Pearl Jam reference here, and then Tyler Nichols, cloudy QB situation, kind of tapping into the Ferentz quotes afterwards. What
Yeah,
do you think of
that
that?
that's where the cloudy thing, that's where I think, so I think there's two things to separate here. One is that Kirk Ferentz said at Big Ten Media Days he wanted to know who the starting quarterback is. He'd prefer to know then. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one side of things, where Iowa would prefer to know who the starting quarterback is. But the other side of things, where I think Kirk Ferentz probably wanted to tamp down maybe the reaction to what happened at Kids Day, is that he didn't want that separation maybe to come in such a public sense where it wasn't, people weren't getting the full picture. That's why he was pretty clearly downplaying the day that Jeremy Hecklinski had, because someone asked for him to evaluate how the quarterbacks played, and he basically deflected
Mm-hmm.
to talking about the way that they had played in the entirety of fall camp and not just the one day. So I think there's two sides of it. On one, Kirk Ferentz would have, I mean, he'd like to know who Iowa's starter is, but on the other side of things, I think there's just the way of how public it was, and maybe it not representing exactly how the quarterback competition had went, that there's just some different optics and nuances and public perception and things behind the scenes that make it maybe a little bit more complicated than he would prefer.
Austin Rickardson says, "Jer Raid Hawkeyes." Uh, Hawkeye Chad, it's Hecklinski time. Adam Helm says, "End the competition." Um, Michael Smith says, "Drew Tate 2.0." I'll give you that for three words there. And then one last one from Burner Ball. Easy choice, Kirk. Easy choice, Kirk. Someone also asked, "How was punting?" We'll get to that as a three-word headline, which is kind of funny. But yeah. That, I mean, that's the thing. It's everyone's made up their minds now on the outside, and honestly, like us in the media, same deal. Like it's like unless he just totally, craps himself in the next couple of weeks. I mean, Hecklinski's got to be your starter week one, and I almost think at this point, barring a Hank Brown resurgence, that it's not like you go into the first game, like saying, okay, we're going to get Hank Brown in the second quarter. I mean, I think you just, if it's this clear, it's just you go Hecklinski, and like I said, I would go make sure I've got the right QB2 also in the first 3 weeks, because that's a really big deal, as we found out last year in that Indiana game.
I was gonna say, I feel like anything other than Jeremy Hecklinski starting and playing, all the snaps except for whatever garbage time there is against Northern Illinois. I feel like anything other than that, there'll be some public pushback, right? Because if we get to that point and it's Jeremy Hecklinski and Hank Brown each playing a half or trading off drives or whatever, I think based on what people have kind of consumed publicly, there'll be pushback from that, anything other than a Jeremy Hecklinski start and being the guy.
And another thing that you know, I don't think Kirk Ferentz would articulate this, but another thing is you got more time with Hiklinski. Like if push comes to shove, you take the younger guy. If you can have 3 years, let's say he's good, 3 years of a quarterback in this system, entering in his years 2, 3, 4 at Iowa, like that's what Tim Lester wants. He wants that like an NFL team, like a veteran quarterback running that system. It's a long-term view, but it's also, I mean, it's got to be part of the decision. I mean, tie goes to the younger guy, in my opinion, if it's totally tied, and the other guy has more upside. So anyway, good convo there. Let's get into. We'll keep roping in quarterbacks, I'm sure, as we go here. But some, media day was also this past Friday. We got into it a little bit in our post-game pod, but obviously with the quarterback talk, that dominated everything. So there's a lot of storylines going on with this Hawkeye team. 2 weeks out or 2.5 weeks out now from the season. Let's go into some of the depth chart camp risers. Tyler, maybe let's just go back and forth and talk about, I've got plenty on my list that I'm writing about or learning about, and we watched. Where do you want to start with somebody who's really taken a jump in fall camp from your reporting?
The most obvious one, I think, is Anthony Hawkins, because of the Tyler Brown injury, and so him kind of moving into that safety role alongside Zach Lutmer. But he was another guy that Iowa brought in from the transfer portal, younger guy, productive at Villanova, lower level of college football. But he has great size. I mean, he's long, around 6'3", rangy. So he gives Iowa, a real, long athletic presence there in the back end. But he's someone that we saw. There was when we had an open practice during the spring at one point, Tyler Brown was out then and Hawkins was working with the one. So he's been someone that's kind of quickly been on Iowa's radar since he got onto campus. But if Tyler Brown can't go, and it seems like it's unclear at this point, what his health looks like. It doesn't seem like it's a long-term thing, but I'm just not exactly sure when he'll be back. But Hawkins, he could be a key piece of the defense before, if Tyler Brown isn't able to go, and potentially still be, in the mix after he does come back.
Yeah, it's a good one, and he was one of the guys I think I was impressed with during that practice defensively. I'm pretty sure coaches felt the same way about Hawkins' play that day. So that's encouraging. That's encouraging because you don't want to be just panicking if Tyler Brown is out at this point. I don't think there's incredible panic, but I think you want Tyler Brown in there ideally. I think he's one of your best five once he's back and healthy. A lot of times when it's soft tissue and they don't have a time frame, it's usually either groin or hamstring, but I don't know that for sure. A lot of times those can be lingering issues. Let's stick on the defensive side of the ball with a camp riser. And this is a name I had on my post-spring quote-unquote depth chart because they're not coming out with a depth chart at all until week 1. But Jacob Wallace kind of reaffirmed him as I feel like he's going to be in that top 5 of the defensive backs when they go 4-2-5. He might even be top 4. He started at Cash. He's just a second-year player. And this is a guy that raised some eyebrows kind of the second half of last season. Really turned heads in bowl prep. That's always a great time to make a jump when you're a young player. But this kid seemed – I talked to him for a while on Media Day. I've got a fun story I'm going to write about him. I don't want to spoil it yet, but there's a really funny story about his first practice at Iowa. But he's just really – a smart player, a really good player. I don't have a comp for him or anything like that yet, but I will say that it follows kind of the progression of this isn't a comp, okay, of what Cooper DeJean did at Iowa, where he ascended later in his freshman year, started his sophomore year at the corner or cash, depending when Castor was out that year. But as a second year player, earned a lot of trust from coaches and was just out there. And he could flex back and forth from cash to corner. That's what they hope they can get Wallace to. So I think it's possible that Wallace, Tyler, I don't know this yet. They still got to sort through some stuff. But I think it is possible, based on what Phil Parker said, Seth Wallace said, that Deshaun Lee is your number one cornerback right now. But I'm not so sure Jacob Wallace isn't number two. But they have him at cash, so then maybe Jalen Watson or somebody else is your three. So if they go 4-3, maybe Wallace floats out to corner is what I'm saying. Like they want him on the field all the time. So Camp Reiser, Jacob Wallace, I feel good about him in the starting lineup.
Just got an email. Here's some breaking news for you that Iowa is teaming up with Progressive Insurance, and that's going to include uh, they're saying the verbiage will be on the white sideline apron between the 20-yard line and end zone on all four corners of Duke Slater Field at Kinnick Stadium. So some new branding being added to Kinnick Stadium.
Not a jersey patch.
It
No
doesn't
jersey
appear.
patch.
So I haven't read through the
I
whole.
haven't read it yet. But okay.
Um,
We'll read it. I'll read it while you're talking.
okay. Um, Another riser, Kale Winter. That was someone who, after Iowa's final spring practice, Kirk Ferentz name dropped and spoke really highly of. And it seems like he's just continued his ascent on the offensive line. He won the hay bale toss at Solon Beef Days, and he was out there. It appeared with Iowa's best five right now on the offensive line would be Trevor Lauk, Leighton Jones, Winter, Pieper, and Jack Dotzler. That's based on Kids Day. That seems like it'll be Iowa's five. And Winter and Pieper both were snapping it. They both got time at center. So it doesn't seem like that decision at center has been made yet. But
Right.
based on Kids Day, that seems like Iowa's best five at this point with what I mentioned. And then, maybe Mislinski and Lucas Algier, right now with the second team potentially. So, but yeah, Kale Winter seems, I mean, he wasn't at this time last year. I don't think he was on our radars at all, but he seems like he's really been impressing Kirk Ferentz, George Barnett, and has a real shot to be in that starting five.
Yeah, it sure seems like it's trending that way with Winter. He and Pieper were with the ones exclusively. Yeah, like you said, they flipped back and forth at center. Barnett, I talked to Barnett for quite a while about this. I was like, don't you want Pieper at center, ideally? And he's like, well, it just depends how they play, like how they play together. Like if the line as a whole is better with Winter at center and Pieper at right guard, then that's what you go with. If it's better the other way around, that's what you go with. So I think it's going to be either Pieper at center, Winter at right guard, or vice versa. That seems to be the way it's trending. That's also a good thing if you kind of get that resolved. At least your top five right now, and it feels like that's the case. Mislinski was repping with the twos at center, and I think that's a perfect spot for him because he can come in and be your stopgap at center or right guard, depending. Gives you a lot of flexibility. If something happens to Pieper, obviously you would go Winter right now as your center over Mislinski, it seems like. And then, who's your next man in? Maybe it's Lucas Allgaier. That's kind of how it feels. But, yeah, Winter, definitely a riser for sure. I don't think I had him number one on my depth chart coming out of spring, and I would right now. If I had to pick, I would say they're going to put Pieper at center just because they like having their best player at center if possible. And I think the more time Pieper does get at center, he's just going to get better and better. I mean, that's how it typically works. The snaps the other day were not great, though. There were a lot of snaps where Hecklinski had to, grab it with one hand. There was a bobbled snap or two. It's hard to know exactly whose fault all that is, but there were some not great snaps. But Logan Jones went through that, too, and he became a second-round draft pick. Good one on Winter. I think I'll just go on offense as well. Let's go with the obvious one here. Evan James, I wrote about him, posted that story this morning. at hawkcentral.com. Wrote about him and the wide receivers, but I what's that meme? I was not familiar with your game.
Yeah.
uh,
Good
this
pull. Good pull.
Yeah, this dude is good. And Heklinski gave us the tip off back in the summer when he said this guy runs routes like Devontae Smith, formerly of Alabama, now with the Eagles. And the guy just gets open. He gets open and he's fast. He's not a big dude, but he's also just like really, really solid. And I went, so when I wrote this story, and I think we've all been kind of swept up in the Tony Diaz talk. But you just look at his stats at Furman, and he was just like insanely consistently productive. 8 touches per game, almost 100 yards from scrimmage per game at Furman, and he only played 9 games. So, like we say, 65 catches, 796. Like, that sounds like, oh, that's a pretty good season. But he did that in 9 games. I mean, that's more than 7 catches a game. You're pushing, 90 yards a game on, through the air. He also had 7 carries for 72 yards, and he scored 8 total touchdowns in those 9 games. And they played Clemson. He scored a touchdown against Clemson last year. So this guy can play. He is right now, John Budmeyer said, he's their number 1 slot receiver. So you got Vanderzee at the X, Diaz at the Z, and then James right now is your number 1 slot. So that's your top 3 right now. Those 3, the 2 transfers plus Vanderzee, with Dayton Howard kind of flipping from X to Z. And then KJ Parker is the backup slot right now, but he looked pretty good on Kids Day too. So Evan James, man, that's a really nice development for the Hawkeyes to not only get 1 receiver in the portal that can instantly contribute, but clearly they've got 2 right away. And he's got 4 years left of eligibility. He's just a true second year, like true sophomore.
Yeah. What do we call him now? Do we like just say
I've been saying
second?
second year. I've been
Yeah,
saying
that's
second year. Second year Evan James has it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because now there's freshman, sophomore with the new
I've still been
eligibility.
using freshman though. True. I
Okay,
still keep
true
saying true
freshman.
freshman to be, but
Well, that's a good segue into I asked because now that changes eligibility for guys who didn't redshirt, they potentially have another year. But I asked Reese Vanderzee, Jalen Watson, and Zach Ortworth all said that they would at least consider using that 5th year. And it's a little bit further down the road for Jalen Watson and Reese Vanderzee, but Zach Ortworth would be next season that he could use a 5th season, and he was open to the idea. Didn't sound like he had conclusively made the decision yet, as it's still fairly fresh. But those, Iowa could get an extra year with some of these guys who could be impactful. And it's like a Jalen Watson who hasn't been a regular starter, but it feels like he's still scratching the surface of what he's capable of. So to be able to get him possibly back for a 5th year, that would obviously be a nice kind of extra boost. I'll stay on the offensive side of the ball for another camp riser, LJ Phillips. I thought
yeah, dang,
he was the most impressive running back in my opinion on the day. And I would say, if I was giving out 4 stars of the day, they would all be on the offensive side of the ball, and Phillips would be one of them. I would say it was Heklinski, James, Vanami, and LJ Phillips. But he just he's built so low to the ground, has a low center of gravity, but he just runs with a lot of power, and he really stood out at Kids Day. He just looks like someone that's just not fun to try to tackle. Like, I just do not envy people that are gonna try to tackle him, and it's not difficult to see how he rushed for almost 2,000 yards at South Dakota. I feel like we've just kind of thrown that number out, but not like at least me, I haven't like fully processed that this guy almost ran for 2,000 yards in a season. And like, you have to, I know it's at a lower level of college football, but you got to have something there to be able to put up those numbers. So he, to me, looks like Iowa stable of running backs, between him, Kamari Moulton, Nathan McNeil, Xavier Williams. You got some high end guys, but also some really good depth. So and also you have, I think, between Moulton LJ Phillips and McNeil, you have three pretty different skill
Yeah.
sets.
Hmm.
So you have some variety there. So I think, it's gonna be pretty fun we've talked about the passing game so much, but Iowa's running game has the chance to be really explosive this season.
Yeah, that's a great one. You think about the great year Caleb Johnson had, 2024. Phillips rushed for 300 yards more than Caleb Johnson did, for how good of a season Caleb had, for the Hawkeyes that year, of course. So, yeah, production, 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 and with this offensive line, feel good about Phillips, cracking some holes, and even if he doesn't have a hole, it seems like he can run through some guys. So, and his burst through was really impressive too. I know it's just non-tackle, but whew. Let's go to the D line. I think the biggest riser, from my reporting, and I thought he looked good on film too. Honestly, when I look back at it, was Drew Campbell, a defensive end. He did get the start. He's going to be a factor this year, and he looks like he's more of the potential of that three down type of defensive end. Kamari Brown's probably still more of a pass rusher. Joseph Anderson probably more of a pass rusher. Whereas I think between Merriweather, Epinesa, and Campbell, you're going to have your three every down type guys, and I think Campbell's got a chance to potentially start. We'll see if he gets the nod over Epinesa, in week one. But I think those are your top three right now, with Brown and Anderson being more specialized. But Campbell, certainly, that's great news. I mean, the younger brother of Jack Campbell at defensive end, they needed somebody to emerge there. It sounds like somebody has, and that person's name is Drew Campbell.
I'll stay defensive side, kind of mirroring you. I'll say Marcello Vitti. He's someone who enrolled early. That's a first year guy that was probably between him and Darian Jones at the top of the list of first year guys who could get meaningful snaps. And I don't know how big of a factor Vidi might play, but it seems like he's at least in the periphery of the conversation to get playing time. And maybe that'll be on special teams, maybe that'll be on defense, but it seems like he's pretty quickly, since he enrolled early, he has a spring under his belt, but he's been someone that's been getting reps, in that first or second team type conversation. So he's someone, first year guy that, and then if there's some injuries, you never know if he could get thrown in there. But he's someone that I think has at least a chance to kind of start to gain some traction in his first season.
Let's just kind of wrap up now. We've hit a lot of them, but I'll kind of pair a couple guys on offense. They won't be on the depth chart, but Brody Schaefer and Isaiah Oliver are really impressed. Two first-year guys. Isaiah Oliver is a walk-on, son of former Hawkeye basketball great Dean Oliver, from Waukee Northwest, like Cale Winter, a Waukee Northwest guy. But Schaefer, John Budmeyer had really good things to say about him. He caught a touchdown from Sullivan, as mentioned, dropped one from Bessinger. I think he's a guy that's probably mid-season type thing. Once he figures everything out, could start being a factor in the rotation. We'll see where things are injury-wise. But I think Schaefer has a chance to contribute this season. And Oliver, really interesting. He just looked really good out there, made catches, number 89. Obviously, he's brand new. It's a walk-on. But a name worth mentioning, maybe 2 years from now when we're doing another podcast, maybe he'll be a household name by then. But son of Dean Oliver too. So just keep an eye and an ear on Isaiah Oliver.
Do we want to go kicking game a little bit?
Yeah,
Or
because you're writing about the kickers. Let's kind of wrap up on that.
yeah, so I went back and charted the makes and misses, and this is unofficial. I think I got every kick, but I may have missed one here or there. But I had Eli Ozick, the North Dakota State transfer, going 6 for 10, and Caden Burr, the returner, preferred walk on, going 7 for 11. So I thought, watching it back, I thought Burr outperformed Ozick, and some of the snaps that Burr were getting was not good at all. And so he was able to still make some kicks despite that. I don't know, the kicking battle it's interesting because Ozick just has so much more experience in college. He's made a lot of kicks at North Dakota State. Burr, behind Drew Stevens last season, barely played at all. But I mean, based on this, I thought Burr looked better. I don't know. I think it might be either way. It might be a little bit of a roller coaster and some inconsistencies. But I mean, I thought from the outside looking in, I thought you think Ozick is going to be the guy because they bring him in from the portal. But it seems like competition is still open, and it's not over.
Well, and you think about, you know, what they're replacing. Drew Stevens just won the kicking job for the Washington Commanders. So,
Yeah, congrats to
um,
him for that.
yeah, that's huge. But that's the level of kicker you're replacing. So the bar is incredibly high. And Stevens did it for 4 years at Iowa. Had one little blip, the kind of that sophomore year, but man, he was good. 70 field goals in his career. How many from 50 plus? Like 12. I mean, he just rocketed those. Plus, he was great on kickoffs. I mean, so
Remember
um,
when he hit that guy in the head? I think it was the Washington game, and that was like went viral because the guy looked like he got hit like shotgun to the head or something.
Uh, that's right. That was yeah. Drew Stevens, man, he generated a lot of memories at Iowa. Some walk-off kicks. The one at Wrigley Field.
Yeah,
Beat Nebraska on
Michigan
the
State
bomb.
last
Michigan
season.
State, yeah, absolutely. Seemed like he had a game winner every year. Yeah, great career for Iowa. So congrats to him. So yeah, that's just I guess be patient on the kicking thing. It's probably not going to be like great. But they have a couple solutions there. Ozick must have rallied because I had him 3 for 7 at one point on my stats. But obviously, again, when you're making way, I stopped recording after we started heading down from the press box. So good. He must have finished strong. So good. Um, did you want to talk hoops, or should we save that for another day?
Uh, I think we can save it.
Yeah, we gave we went long enough for you guys here. We don't want to take all your day. So that was good. Anything else on your mind, football wise?
Um, no, well, to continue the kicker conversation real quick, the thing that I think is going to be difficult to replace just beyond the leg strength and that type of stuff with Drew Stevens, but it's just that clutch ability.
Mm-hmm.
When you need a big kick to be made and the pressure is on in a really tight game, what's going to happen? Because that's a kicking is just so mental because you're standing on the sideline for so long, and then you have to come in these high pressure situations. So if it's Eli Ozick, if it's Caden Burr, if you're in that type of situation, even if it's like a 30 to 35 yard field goal where it's not you're not bombing it away from 50 plus, are, are you going to be able to trust those guys and count on those guys to make even a short field goal in a big situation? That's what Atticus Sappington, the Oregon kicker,
Mm-hmm.
hats off
Right.
to him when he kicked that game winner against Iowa. But that wasn't. It was a difficult kick because of the circumstances and the weather, not necessarily because it was a super long field goal. But if Iowa gets in those situations this season,
Mm-hmm.
what's the outcome going to look like?
Yeah, that's a great point. And eventually, I'm going to be writing my record by record predictions, and I think kicker has to come into that. I felt better about kicker last year than I do this year. So, have you ever seen Hamilton? You seen the musical Hamilton?
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
so Caden Burr, sir. That's what I keep thinking every time I hear Burr. Caden Burr, sir. Um, anyway, so let's hope it doesn't end up in a duel at the
yeah.
end for this kicking competition. um, anyway, yeah, good stuff. And the BTN show, Iowa has yet to be on the BTN show. They're the last one of 18. Believe it's this coming Monday night. I want to say 5 p.m., but you better check the listings to be sure for your time zone or whatever. But I think it's 5 p.m. Central on Monday, the 24th, that they will air the BTN show. So maybe we'll have some more information on quarterback because we do not talk to anybody else now until at least next week. Sometimes Ferentz closes camp with a little session with reporters. Sometimes he doesn't. But other than that, then it's all the way till game week until we hear from the Hawks again. And so it's been good to get all this information. Good to talk it through, Tyler. Keep up the good work. We're gonna put our fingers to work now and keep writing some good stories for you guys. So appreciate it, Tyler Tashman, Chad Leistiko saying so long on Hawk Central.